Deep in the Amazon rainforest, hidden beneath centuries of vegetation and soil, lies evidence of a civilization that has baffled archaeologists for decades. Ancient earthworks spanning thousands of square kilometers, sophisticated road networks connecting distant settlements, and genetic signatures in modern populations that point to a mysterious people who vanished without a trace. For years, scientists believed they understood the peopling of South America, a straightforward story of migrations from Asia across the Bering Strait that gradually populated the continent over thousands of years. But revolutionary DNA analysis has revealed something extraordinary, evidence of a completely unknown human population that lived in South America for thousands of years before mysteriously disappearing, leaving behind only faint genetic echoes and tantalizing archaeological clues that are forcing us to rewrite the entire history of human settlement in the Americas. The traditional narrative of South American settlement seemed clear and well established. According to the dominant theory, humans first arrived in the Americas around 15,000 years ago, crossing from Siberia into Alaska via the Bering Land Bridge during the last ice age. These early migrants then spread southward through North America and eventually reached South America, where they diversified into the various indigenous populations we know today. This model, supported by decades of archaeological and genetic research, became the foundation of our understanding of American prehistory and was taught in textbooks and museums worldwide. But cracks began to appear in this neat narrative when archaeologists discovered evidence of human occupation in South America that predated the supposed Bering Strait migration by thousands of years. Sites in Brazil, Chile, and Argentina yielded stone tools, hearths, and human remains that were far older than the accepted timeline allowed. Even more puzzling was the discovery that these ancient South Americans used technologies and tool-making techniques that bore no resemblance to the Stone Age cultures of North America or Siberia, suggesting they had arrived via a completely different route or had developed their technologies independently. The breakthrough came when researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology and the University of São Paulo began the most comprehensive genetic analysis ever conducted on ancient South American populations. Using cutting-edge DNA extraction techniques on skeletal remains from archaeological sites across Brazil, Peru, and Chile, they uncovered something that would completely overturn our understanding of human migration to the Americas. The results were absolutely stunning. Hidden within the genomes of ancient South Americans was clear evidence of a previously unknown human population that researchers are now calling Population Y, named after the Tupian word for ancestor. This ghost population showed no genetic connection to any known Asian, European, or African populations. Their DNA represented a completely distinct branch of humanity that had been isolated for tens of thousands of years before arriving in South America through a route that remains a complete mystery. The most shocking aspect of this discovery was the realization that Population Y wasn't a small group of isolated migrants. Genetic analysis revealed that they had been the dominant population across vast regions of South America for thousands of years, far outnumbering the Bering Strait migrants, who are typically considered the primary ancestors of Native Americans. At their peak, Population Y may have comprised up to 40% of the total South American population, establishing complex societies across the Amazon basin, the Atlantic coast, and deep into the interior of the continent. But here's where the mystery deepens into something truly extraordinary. Around 9,000 years ago, Population Y began to disappear from the genetic record with a rapidity that suggests something catastrophic occurred. Within just a few centuries, their genetic signatures diminished dramatically, dropping from 40% of the South American gene pool to less than 2% in modern indigenous populations. This wasn't gradual assimilation or natural population decline. This was a demographic collapse of unprecedented scale that wiped out an entire branch of humanity in what amounts to an evolutionary eye blink. The genetic evidence reveals the full scale of this mysterious disappearance. DNA samples from South American populations dating to 12,000 years ago show strong Population Y signatures across the continent. By 9,000 years ago, these signatures had become fragmented and localized to small pockets. By 7,000 years ago, Population Y had essentially vanished from the genetic record. surviving only as faint traces in a few isolated indigenous groups in the Amazon and the Brazilian highlands. What makes this disappearance even more mysterious is that it occurred during a period of apparent population growth and cultural development in South America. Archaeological evidence from this time period shows increasing sophistication in tool-making, expanding settlements, and the development of early agricultural practices. There were no obvious environmental catastrophes, no evidence of massive climate shifts, and no signs of the kind of disasters that typically cause population collapses. Population Y simply vanished, leaving behind only genetic shadows and unanswered questions. The few archaeological sites that can be definitively linked to population Y through genetic analysis of human remains reveal a people who were far more technologically advanced than their contemporaries. Their stone tools showed a level of craftsmanship that wouldn't be seen again in South America for thousands of years. They built sophisticated fish traps and water management systems that demonstrate advanced understanding of engineering and hydrology. Most remarkably, they appear to have practiced a form of early agriculture thousands of years before agriculture was supposed to have reached South America, cultivating native plants in ways that left lasting impacts on Amazonian biodiversity. The mystery deepens when we examine the genetic legacy they left behind. The small percentage of population Y DNA that survives in modern indigenous populations is not randomly distributed. Instead, it appears concentrated in genes associated with immune function and environmental adaptation, suggesting that interbreeding between population Y and other populations was selective rather than random. This pattern indicates that population Y possessed genetic advantages that made them valuable breeding partners, yet somehow this wasn't enough to prevent their near-total extinction. Advanced genetic analysis has revealed even more puzzling details about population Y's origins and relationships to other human populations. Their DNA shows ancient connections to Australasian populations, similar to Aboriginal Australians and Melanesians, yet they also carry genetic signatures that suggest possible admixture with unknown archaic human populations that may have lived in South America long before modern humans arrived. This genetic profile is unlike anything seen in other human populations and suggests migration routes and population interactions that completely contradict our current models of human dispersal. The most compelling theory to explain population Y's disappearance involves a combination of factors that created a perfect storm of demographic collapse. Climate data from the period shows that around 9,000 years ago, South America experienced a series of El Niño events more severe than anything in recorded history, bringing devastating floods to coastal regions and prolonged droughts to the interior. If population Y was concentrated in areas particularly vulnerable to these climate extremes, they may have suffered catastrophic population losses that made them vulnerable to assimilation by more numerous neighboring groups. But climate alone doesn't fully explain the rapidity and completeness of their disappearance. Some researchers have proposed that population Y may have been particularly susceptible to diseases carried by later waves of migrants from the north, diseases to which they had no immunity due to their long isolation. Others suggest that cultural factors may have played a role, with population Y's distinct languages, religious practices, or social structures making them targets for displacement or absorption by expanding groups with different cultural traditions. The legacy of population Y can still be found in unexpected places across South America. Linguistic analysis has identified loan words in some Amazonian languages that appear to come from a completely unknown source language, possibly spoken by population Y. Archaeological sites in the Brazilian highlands contain artistic motifs and symbolic systems that bear no resemblance to other South American indigenous art traditions, suggesting they may represent the last cultural expressions of this vanished people. The story of population Y forces us to confront the possibility that human history in the Americas is far more complex than our simplified migration models suggest. Rather than a single wave of Asian migrants gradually populating the continents, we now know that the Americas were settled through multiple independent migrations from different source populations, creating a demographic mosaic far richer than previously imagined. Population Y represents not just a lost people, but an entire chapter of human history that was forgotten until modern genetics resurrected their story from ancient bones. This discovery also raises profound questions about how many other ghost populations might be hiding in the human genetic record, waiting to be discovered. If an entire branch of humanity numbering in the hundreds of thousands could vanish so completely that we only discovered their existence in the 21st century, what other lost peoples might be lurking in the DNA of modern populations, their stories waiting to be told? Thanks for watching. If you found this mystery as fascinating as we did, consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more discoveries that continue to reveal the hidden complexity of human history. Let us know in the comments what you think might have caused population-wise mysterious disappearance and whether other lost peoples might be waiting to be discovered in our DNA. Until next time, keep questioning everything we think we know about our past.